This tutorial we're going to cover creating a sales order from a door and hardware schedule. So we have a door and hardware schedule already opened up here, and you want to make sure that all your doors and frames have been entered, all that's complete, and all of your hardware has been entered, if you're supplying the hardware also. So make sure all this is done before you create your sales order. Make sure all the products get sent over. Another thing you might want to do is come under Update Products, Discounts, and Markups and just verify there aren't any products that were entered on the door frame or hardware schedules that are not in your database, which you can do. You can manually type in almost anything. But if it's not been added to your database, you're not going to be able to send it to a sales order. So to do that, you come up here to this part number to update, and doors are already selected, but you need to select this door schedule radio button. And what it did is it went through and looked to see if there were any doors in the system or in this project that had to be added, and there aren't any. So just then check on the frames, it's still 0, and then check hardware, and it's still 0. If there were any products, they would show up in this grid down here. You could just double click it. It would open up here, and then you would select the part that you want to use, a specific part number, or you can add a new part number if needed. That's all covered in another tutorial. So once that's done, it would come under the Ordering tab. And this section right here is where you can send to a sales order. So we've got, and you have there are 3 grids for the doors, the frames, and the hardware. Right now, everything is listed individually by tag number. So every tag number has a line item for every door and every frame and every piece of hardware. So you can see there's, even though this 2870 left-hand wood door is on 2 lines right here, they're separate because they're separate tag numbers. There's a quantity of 1 for each. It also shows you the number in stock for this line item, but it shows you the total. So even though these are the same, instead of going down trying to count how many of each of these to see if you have enough in stock, you have an option up here. If you've watched the purchase order or estimate tutorials, it's the same thing, where you can group all these part numbers. And if I check this box, it'll group all this like numbers and then combine the tag numbers and put them all in one line and then add up the total quantity over here. So again, you have the quantity for each line item here. You have how many are currently showing in your stock, how many are on a purchase order for stock, and how many are on a purchase order specifically for this job. And that way you can tell what is needed or what you're waiting on. It also shows you how many have been received on this purchase order for this job. Not for stock, but for this job. Okay, now you have a few options here. You have a select all button or checkbox. If I check this box, what it'll do is go through and automatically select all the items for me. This takes a few minutes because it's going down looking at checking the box for each item, line item. This is where grouping comes in handy because right now it's trying to select every single line right there. But I want to point out it only selected for phase 1. If I scroll down here until I get to phase 2, right there, you can see nothing is selected. So at this time you can only do it by phase. That may change at a later date, but for now you can only do it by phase. So make sure you have the correct phase selected that you want to create a sales order to. Typically that's how it's done anyway. If you have phase 1, then you're working on phase 1 only. You create the sales order for it, and get those products shipped out. When they're ready for phase 2, then you can come in and create a sales order for phase 2. Okay, let's see what other items we have here. You also have the option right here, if you just want to select doors only. Let's go ahead and unselect this. So we'll unselect everything. You have the option here to select doors only. And again, if I select this, it's only going to select what's needed for phase 1. There, so you can see that phase 2 was not selected. So now I can select phase 1. Now you also have the option to manually select whatever you want. Maybe there's only specific tag numbers, maybe exterior doors and frames you want to send out. So you can manually check which tag numbers you needed. Down here we look for tag number 7 on the frame. And I'm sure it's here somewhere. I'm just probably scrolling right past it. I did go right past it. Tag number 7 right here. So I could check 7. I could do the same with the hardware. Just go through and look at for tag number 7 and select those items. Also point out on hardware, or doors and frames too, if you have more than a quantity of 1 for each one of these line items, then it's going to take the tag number and put the quantity in parentheses. So for hinges, you have tag number 54, and there's a quantity of 3 hinges needed for tag 54. So that's what that number means. Any item that has only a quantity of only 1, it doesn't do that. It's just a tag number only. So keep that in mind for your tag numbers. Okay, let's get back up to this. Now you can have this option here to include tag numbers. It's automatically selected. You can turn it off if you like, and not include any tag numbers, but that's up to you. Typically you probably would include the tag numbers, and those will be show up under the product note on the sales order. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and group these, because this makes it go, especially on large projects, it's going to go a lot faster if it doesn't have to go through every line item, look for like line items and combine them. So we're going to go ahead and group them now, and we'll wait till this to finish. So now you can see we have that 2870 left-hand door. It's on one line item now. There's 7 and 7A tag number and a quantity of 2. So it combined them for us. It's also easier to tell what you need to order, or if anything's not available. You do have a button up here where you can verify stock, PO, and quantities. If I click this, it'll highlight anything that's insufficient, which it already did for this. But these are preps. They're always going to be insufficient quantity. So don't be too concerned if you see that. This is the same option under purchase orders if you watch that tutorial for order insufficient quantities only. Here it just lets you know before you create the sales order what has an insufficient quantity, in case you happen to miss it for the under the purchase order. So this will give you a chance to, before you send these to a sales order, go back to the purchase order and get those items on order if they're needed. Okay, so a couple other options. Okay, I did cover select all items. You do have the option here to select doors only. If I check this, it will go down and select only the doors for, again, phase 1. It'll leave out phase 2. And the same with frames. If I want to select frames, if I could select doors and frames and no hardware. I could select doors and hardware and no frames. I could select only frames. I could select only hardware. So it's totally up to you on what you need to do according to what's needed for your project. So let's uncheck that. We'll go back. We're going to go ahead and select all items. And again, that's going to go through and select them all for us. For, again, phase one. A couple other items here. You have an option to ship from stock first or ship from PO first. If I check this box, what it's going to do is, if stock is available, it'll even if you have them on a purchase order, it's going to mark the item when it goes to the sales order as being shipped from stock. So your shipping department will know. So it'll put a quantity of 2 to be shipped from stock. The other option is to, now, okay, if there's not enough for stock, see if I have one. Okay, here's one. Well, no, I take it back. There's 20 on order. Let's see if we have any that have an insufficient quantity. Here's one. If I were to check that box to ship from stock, it's going to see that this item here does not have enough available from stock. So it's going to mark that item to be shipped from a purchase order for this project. And it looks like they're already on order, so that's already taken care of for us. Now the other option is to ship from a purchase order first and then from stock. So if you have enough on a PO coming in, it'll use that quantity, and if there whatever quantity is left over that's needed, it'll take from stock. Now if you don't have enough available from stock or from a purchase order, then it's not going to mark them either way. So you will have to manually go in. So you might want to check these items first to make sure you have enough quantities available on whatever's needed through creating a purchase order, whatever you need to do. Okay, so again, if you want to work from your stock first, typically, I know these are all showing items that are on order for this job. This is my test database. Typically for you, that will probably all be 0, unless you've already created those on a purchase order. So don't pay too much attention to this on this test project, because I go in and out of this a lot, testing my code, and I probably have these on a purchase order somewhere when they're not really. I shouldn't have even had them on here yet. Okay, so those are your options right there. Another thing you can do is if this customer requires a purchase order, you can go ahead and enter the purchase order here, purchase order number, and how you want these to ship. If they're going to ship best way, if they're going to go out on your truck, if they're going to be customer pickup right here. So however they're going to ship, you can make the selection now. I'll just select best way. Let's see, anything else I need to point out here? So once we're ready to create our sales order, I'm sending everything to a sales order. But again, you have your options, so however you need to do yours. And I'm going to tell it to ship from stock first. I'll show you what happens here. So let's believe that's it. Again, this is only going to be phase 1 also. So we're going to go ahead and send this to a sales order. Now it's reminding me I have insufficient quantities available. Do you want to continue without creating POs first? I'm going to say no, because I want to show you probably where that's coming from. That's coming from these items right here, which is okay. Let's see, that one. Yeah, that one is, this should be taken care of. But we're going to go ahead and do this anyway. Here's another item that probably should be ordered because there's not enough available. Let's go ahead and take a look at each one of these. Okay, so before I create this sales order, I really need to go through here and get these things on a purchase order or something to make sure I've got enough available coming in. So let's go ahead and we'll select National Guard. And I'm not going to go through this process. This was all done under the PO tutorial. I'm going to pause the video and get this taken care of first, and I'll be back with you in just a second. Okay, we should be good to go now. Again, I'm going to just select everything for phase 1, and we'll want to show ship from stock first. So send to order. We already know this, so I'm going to tell it yes, I do want to continue. So we're going to, it'll automatically open up the sales order for us, and we'll make sure everything looks good. You can see it's showing the sales order number there that was created. And there we have it. So we have the job name, product information, and these are all the products. Along with all the tag numbers for each item. Now, when I told this up here to ship from stock first, you can see you have a couple columns here, ship from stock or ship from PO. So this is telling your shipping department where they need to pull these items from. Didn't list the components, that's okay. But it does list the frames, so let's see, over here is the quantity that were ordered. And this also shows up when you go to inventory and staging. You have the same columns here. So it tells their guys how many should come from stock and how many come from a purchase order. You see here's one here, there weren't enough in stock, so it has to come from the PO. There's another one. I don't know if we have any mixes, but if there were, it would do it accordingly. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. So this is the new inventory and staging. You can print out the pick ticket. Now we'll cover this under another tutorial. I'm not going to go a whole lot into this. But you can see it has columns here, quantity ordered, how many to ship from stock, how many ship from a PO, how many are in stock, how many are on a purchase order on order, with the inventory location and the staging location. And again, you still have the option to include a PO, but we'll cover this on another tutorial. So just again, make sure everything looks correct when it opens up, and okay, so that should pretty well cover it. Let me just minimize this. Again, if you look over here, you can see the sales order number has been entered. So if I ever need to, after we close out of that sales order, if I had to get back to it, just search for that number, 9319. Now when needed, I can change this to 2 and create a sales order for phase 2 items. And again, if you have multiple order numbers in here, you have an option over here to create a new sales order for whatever reason. Maybe you added some parts to the schedule or whatever it might be. So that original sales order, it still exists, but you could always void it out if necessary, if that's what you wanted to do. Let's see there. So you could void this out if your sales order was no longer needed and you wanted to create a whole new sales order. Then you would just leave this blank and click clear order number and it'll clear that sales order number out and allow you to create a new sales order. As long as that number's here, you cannot select. If I were to select this, tell it to select all items, you can see it only selects, well, it did phase 2, I'm sorry. Leave us on phase 1. We'll uncheck that. Oh, okay. My mistake here. Let's go back. Uncheck this. Let's put this back to phase 1. And if I select all items, it will not select anything with a sales order number in it. It tried to, but it took them out. So this number has to be cleared out before you can create a new sales order. I believe that should pretty well cover everything. Everything up here, I covered all these. If you only want to ship doors, frames, or hardware. And that should do it. So if you have any questions or concerns, give us a call or email. Thanks.